Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Let's read this report. It says, an ancient graveyard of vast proportions hath been found in Coffee County. It is similar to those found in White County and other places in Tennessee, but it is vastly more extensive and shows that the race of pygmies who once inhabited this country were very numerous. All right? The same peculiarities of position observed in the White County graves are found in these. The writer of the letter says, some considerable excitement and curiosity took place a few days since near Hillsborough, Coffee County, or James Brown's farm, a man was plowing in a field which has been cultivated many years, plowing up a man's skull and other bones. After making a further examination, they found that there were about 6 acres in the graveyard. They were buried in a sitting or standing position. Their bones show that they were a dwarf race of people, about 3 feet high. It is estimated that there were about 75,000 to 100,000 buried there, all right? Pygmies in Tennessee. Again, future series, all right? Pygmies are not just from Africa or the Bushmen from Africa. You gotta dodge the hijack. But great report here, as you guys can see. This was reported in a newspaper, 1876.
Calls a halt and dispatches scouts into the thickets nearby. Silent hunters with keen ears and eyes alert for signs of game. One pygmy has brought along the precious fire, which is lighted for the group.
So this was actually suggested to me to do some research on this by a viewer, and I'd never heard of it before, which I find odd because I was born and raised in Tennessee and could go on for a week at least on all the myths and the tall tales and stuff that are coming out of that state. So I'm going to continue to do a little research on that one, see if I can dig up some more stuff. Didn't do a whole lot of digging on it, but in the half hour that I spent, that was about all I could find. So we'll see if there's anything else, and I'll throw it in a future video.
It burns in a vacuum. In an original recording between Houston and astronauts on the moon, a reply is heard instantly, which would not be possible from that distance.
Roger, Jim, copy. And are you progressing towards Dune Crater now?
Yes.
The same recording was then edited for a public broadcast, and 4 seconds were added.
Roger, Jim, copy. And are you progressing towards Dune Crater now?
Yes.
And when they supposedly left, there was no visible flame on the lunar module, even though hypergolic fuel visibly burns in a vacuum. And we never hear the 140 decibel rocket engine which the astronauts are sitting on top of.
40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. 4 forward. 4 forward. Drift into the right a little. That's okay.
During takeoff, when it would have been burning at its loudest, an astronaut plays a musical recording, accentuating how quiet it is inside the craft.
99 pro. Good lift off. Automatic.
Hopefully I don't get copyright over that little clip, but there you go, more evidence that the whole thing was faked. I think a lot of this stuff, like them playing music and stuff during takeoff, I think that was probably done for dramatic effect and to make it feel more epic. And I think that they just didn't think this through all those years ago, that we would be overanalyzing the mess out of this video footage all these years later. They probably couldn't predict that we would even have access to this footage. They thought that they would just have it and they would show it whenever they felt like it on national TV. They probably had no idea that eventually the internet would be a thing and we'd be able to sit here and just basically dog all this fake video footage.
An official moon rock given to Holland by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin was tested and found to be petrified wood from Earth. The lunar module designs have been thrown away. Videotapes are missing. And all of the telemetry data, which could be used as evidence of the moon mission, is also somehow missing.
We've been unable to to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So, unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up.
Isn't that the same guy with the gray hair that famously is on TV saying we lost the technology that got us to the moon and it's a painful process to build it back again? Has this guy been spitting the same story for 30 plus years? He still acts like he's shocked every time he gets asked that question.
Life is a simulation, and a legitimate professor has proved it. James Gates, a theoretical physicist at MIT with 2 bachelor degrees and a PhD, found literal computer code embedded in the most fundamental building blocks of reality, called strings. Now, string theory is a tough one, but I'm gonna break it down for you in a way that an 11-year-old would understand. So if you don't get this, hey, go back to grade 5, bruh. Alright, so we got my boy Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is basically just a theory of everything big. Planets, gravity, the universe, all the way back to the Big Bang. Then we got the new kid in town, quantum physics. This is the theory of everything small, like particles, atoms, and molecules, where the general laws of physics like gravity don't apply anymore. The same is true the other way around. Quantum laws don't apply to regular-sized physics. So we got general relativity, everything big, and quantum physics, everything small. Like, yo, dig. But both of these realms have the same parent, the Big Bang, at which point everything that is now big used to be small. If the small can become big, then quantum and general relativity need some sort of theory that can unify them. That is string theory. What happens to the big when it's small? What happens when you zoom into an atom? You see protons and neutrons in the center with electrons all around it. Now, what about inside a neutron? Even smaller particles called quarks. So how deep does the scale go? Conventional science will tell you there's nothing inside these quarks. But string theory suggests there's a tiny filament or a string of pure energy that exists inside of them. And just like the string of a guitar vibrates and creates different sound based on its shape and tension, the strings in string theory vibrate. But instead of sound, they produce matter in the form of particles. This completely changes the way you look at the world. Every particle in the universe is just a string vibrating at a different frequency, and every vibrational pattern has its own associated particle. So if you break anything down far enough, we're all just energy vibrating at differing wavelengths to form matter. Although it's still just a theory, this would link general relativity to the quantum realm and form what is known as the theory of everything. Okay, yeah, cool. Now where is this computer code found? When Dr. James Gates took a look at a set of equations derived from string theory, he found binary code. Error-correcting code used for compressing data on a computer. A sequence of ones and zeros, the same code that is used by popular search engines, which, according to him, who has a PhD in theoretical physics from MIT, doesn't just resemble computer code, it literally is computer code. Meaning, if we break matter and energy down far enough, we eventually find compressing computer code etched into the very fabric of reality. So, who wrote this code? Are we living in, dare I say, a simulation?
I love the simulation theory. I think that it's fascinating to think that we might possibly be living inside of a computer program. The idea that my entire life, which I know I've lived, could have started this morning. I could have woken up this morning with a bunch of fake implanted memories. Very cool, very interesting to think about. Kind of trippy, kind of breaks your brain a little bit trying to comprehend the very idea that that would be a potential reality. But it's fascinating to think about. And it's really cool how we keep having all these scientists come out saying, we found yet another clue that points to the possibility that we're living in a simulation. I just think it's neat. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I make a new one just like it every single day. It would be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back to join me tomorrow.
I'm retiring after 23 years, and my job was to monitor and analyze the conflict of 3 extraterrestrial biological entity civilizations that have been terraforming and manipulating genetic material on this planet for at least 270 million years. And then over the next 7 hours, he broke down tall blondes, reptilian humanoids, and the Greys. He said the Greys were largely artificial intelligence. A lot was unknown about the progenitor of the Greys. The blondes were in many, many solar systems in the Milky Way galaxy. That the reptilians were here first. And that the reptilians claim Earth as their own. But the blondes want to be able to do laboratory experiments on Earth as well, and so do the Greys. 3-way conflict, The blondes have been trying to annihilate the reptilians. The reptilians have been trying to annihilate the blondes. The grays have sometimes taken sides, other times they do their own independent thing. But he said, what we have come to learn is why I wanted to do this meeting with you, because I got a call that said you have to get Linda Moulton Howe's new book. She has a 106-page chapter about the resurrection technology that we have never wanted anyone to know anything about, that on any discovery of this ever. And I said, well, my sources are the people in the human abduction syndrome. He said, I realize we underestimate what the non-humans are doing with people. And then he talked to me about how the reptilians and the blondes fight. He said, the blondes make reptilian containers, and they have the ability to put their consciousness and their life force into the reptilian container. The reptilians began to catch on to what the blondes were doing, and they started making blonde containers and putting their reptilian consciousness. And then the grays saw what the blondes and the reptilians were doing, and the grays created blondes and reptilians that they would move into. And he said, Linda, you cannot tell the players on this planet without very sophisticated technology. He said, over time, in the analysis that he did, that the biggest fight seemed to be over territory. And the biggest fight seemed to be over what to do or not to do with one of the latest genetic experiments, Homo sapiens sapiens. And all three of those extraterrestrial groups want to do laboratory experiments here. They want the other two to go away. And he said to me, what I think and why I'm talking to you and why I sought you out. I frankly think that if the whole world knew the whole truth that I'm talking to you today, it would probably create a dent in the ability of those three extraterrestrial civilizations to manipulate humans.
I don't know how much weight I put into all that. I've never heard of this lady before. Did a little background study on her, and she seems to have some, relatively decent credentials. The one thing I do find fascinating is that every video you see or every audio recording that you hear or listen to of someone who is describing what these things are here for, what they're doing, what their intentions are, it seems like the story always adds up. It seems like everyone's story always lines up with each other to a degree. And I also found this interesting because yesterday we had a video where there was a whistleblower giving testimony saying that some of these crafts were powered by fake aliens. And I wonder if this right here is what they're referencing, because they didn't give any vivid details about that, but fake aliens in the sense of a gray pretending to be a blonde or tall white or whatever you want to call them, or a blonde pretending to be a reptilian. Maybe that's what they meant by fake aliens. I don't know. Could all be hocus pocus. We'll find out eventually.
Whether or not you believe the ridiculous Earth plane theory, please watch this video carefully, because it will probably change your perception of the world. Back in 1956, Samuel Shenton, a member of the Royal Astronomical Society, founded an organization called the Earth Plane Society, and he came up with an alarmist idea. He believed that the idea that the Earth was a sphere was a lie that deceived the whole world, that it's actually a large disk centered on the North Pole, with the sun and the moon rotating directly above the disk. Where the sun shines, it's day. The rest is night. That's what we see as day and night. The boundary of the disk is entirely made up of a tall wall of Antarctic ice. And because the sea is surrounded by this wall of ice, the Earth is not exposed, and gravity doesn't exist. The reason for the free fall It's because the Earth is rising like an elevator. At first, not many people cared about this seemingly absurd theory. It wasn't until the association came up with some strange phenomena that couldn't be explained by normal thinking that more and more people thought that the shape of the Earth might not be as simple as they thought. First of all, whether we look around at any high altitude, even using high-altitude balloons and unmanned aircraft, when we take photos at altitudes higher than 1 kilometer above sea level, the horizon is always completely flat. But strangely enough, it's only in photos released by NASA or other space agencies that the ground shows a certain curvature. They think the government is trying to hide something by faking the photos. If the Earth were round, pilots would have to tilt down every time they flew in a straight line, or else they'd fly off the planet. But in fact, pilots don't have to do that. What's even stranger is that in the Italian port of Genoa, 21 meters above the sea, you can see the island of Capraia, 164 kilometers away. According to the Earth's curvature, the island would be 1,708 meters below sea level. It's impossible to see. And when we look up at the moon, why are some clouds in front of the moon and others behind it? If the moon is 380,000 kilometers away from the Earth, then this phenomenon is impossible. And finally, the United Nations has known for a long time that the Earth is flat, as evidenced by its symbols. And in 1959, all the countries signed the Antarctic Treaty, which forbids all airplanes to fly over Antarctica and forbids all people to enter Antarctica without permission. And this just proves that there are people who are trying to hide the secrets of Antarctica. They believe that the Antarctic ice wall is the end of the world, and if you go over it, you're going to enter another parallel world. This is why many people believe that the Earth may not be a sphere. According to the Horizon Theory Society, we're actually being controlled by a higher civilization. The Earth is like a fishbowl, and humans are the fish in it. When they realized that we had the ability to cross the Antarctic barrier by assigning certain so-called human beings to fabricate the Earth's spherical shape in order to prevent mankind from discovering the truth about the universe. And what's even more incredible is that millions of people have started to believe in the geodesic theory as of today. And the Horizon Society holds an international symposium on Horizon Theory every year. The organization includes former NASA staff and celebrities from all walks of life, although the idea of the geodesic theory is full of holes in modern science. But you may not realize that most people thought the Earth was flat long before we entered modern physics. It was the reluctance of a small group of people to follow the majority view. It was the reluctance of a small group of people to follow the majority view that eventually led us to slowly unravel the mysteries of the universe. Although many of us now believe that the Earth is round, there is still a group of people like Don Quixote who are questioning the world's beliefs, and even though they're not very good at it. But have you ever thought that questioning itself is also the driving force for mankind to keep moving forward?
Didn't particularly care for the way that they were putting down people who think differently in that video by calling them ignorant or whatever in so many words. But I wanted to throw that one in because I think it's a very good explainer video for the most part. For those of you who are only familiar with the outside edges of the flat earth movement and haven't done a lot of digging into it, I felt like that was a good explainer video for what a good majority of them view as how the flat earth model works. The main difference that I am aware of in how a lot of people who believe in a flat earth see it is that a lot of people believe that Earth actually extends out past the ice wall, and that all of our planets are reflections on the inside of the dome, and that those planets like Mars and Pluto and Neptune and all these different places are actual places here on Earth on the other side of the ice wall. Interesting theory. I don't believe it, but I thought that video was very good for that reason specifically.
These are scenes from a much different Egypt than we have been shown in our history books, showing a very buried city under the sand, pyramids built right on top of ancient tree stumps, and a sphinx that looks much different than the face we see today. And when I say built on top of ancient tree stumps, just look at this map from Cairo. let's take a little closer look onto the top right of it. All those pyramids right on top of flat top mountains, or as we know them here, ancient trees. Everything has been reshaped in this world we know, mostly in part to hide our true past, our true origins, the true purpose of these structures like the pyramids. I think they were once part of an advanced civilization's free energy network, and they definitely go a lot deeper than we see. We have just started unburying from the last reset. What do you think the true purpose of the pyramids were? Let me know in the comments. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
I think that the pyramids were some sort of a energy, like a free energy device or some sort of frequency emitter that had to do with energy. I think that video is fascinating for two reasons. One, the wild look of the Sphinx drawings. They look completely different. They almost look like they were the original statue in these drawings. I don't see them recreating details that aren't actually there whenever they're drawing these things to take back home and show people what they found. And the second thing is you look at the top of a lot of these drawings of the pyramids that are older, and even some that look like old photos, and it almost looks like there's an obelisk on top of the pyramids. Very curious to know what that was and where it sits now. Who removed it and what was it? Was it just another stone, or was it a statue on top of the pyramids, or what?
Everything was designed here for a reason. The frequencies were designed for certain reasons. Let's talk about the sun. The sun is 5.9642 gigahertz. Add those numbers up. What do you get? 26. 26 in Gematria represents the divine. Then you go into water. Water is 100 terahertz. It represents, if you look at Gematria, according to the Hebrew alphabet, 100, because we don't count the zeros. It's 1. 1 represents the oneness of the universe. Your body is 70% water. The planet is 70% water. You think it's a coincidence?
In the document, it says there were 666,666 pyramids before the Exodus, and today there are less than 100,000, which is known, by the way. There are many pyramids all over the place. But why the 666,666?
The number is 666. Represents the number 18. 18, according to Hebrew Gematria, represents life. Earth's radiation is 7.83 hertz. Human beings, 7.83 hertz. Now if you take 7.83 and add the number up, you will get the number 18. As you know, the number 18, again, represents life. Every number has a frequency. Every number has certain energies.
I never heard of Gematria until I come across this video. Threw it in here so I could get some conversation down in the comments section going about it. If anyone's familiar with what this Gematria stuff is, and if you're aware if there's actually anything to it, let me know down in the comments. It sounds like, based off this one video, of course, it sounds like some numerology hocus pocus. So interested to know if anyone has heard anything else about it.
The West has to look at India. This is the Ellora cave system. It was carved from the top down, and there's a bunch of them. They also had to move 400 tons of rock out of the side of this mountain, and nobody can find it. The Hindu people were on side quests at some point in their evolution. Just think for a second how you would do that from the top of a mountain down, how you would design that. And that's 1,500 years ago. That would be impressive if the entire country did that they have these two. These are step wells, and that one goes 13 stories into the ground. Those have been around for thousands of years. The city pool in my hometown closed down recently because it was too damaged. At some point, I feel like they just got bored because they built a step well that is an inverted temple, and one of those, but it's upside down into the ground. It's called a Reni Kavav, and just look at the geometry here. If you don't know architecture, engineering, geometry, or math, these things can be easily explained. That temple is 165 feet tall and uses the same technology your camera uses to take a picture. If you go by the mainstream narrative, their pyramids are even 500 years older than Egypt's, but this one will melt your mind. These are the Barbar caves. They are solid granite cut to a tolerance of 0.001 millimeters, measured with a laser. That's a LiDAR scan of the precision of these 5 caves. Human hand is just not that precise. These people did not have more time on their hands. We have more time on our hands. That's why you're on this app. They didn't just know what hard work was, they were smarter, and they had tech. It's in their books. And sure, you can force a whole bunch of people to dig a hole, but you cannot force them to make engineered artistic marvels. Those guys knew that to tell their story, they had to hide it in the details. Anyone can say the carvings mean something. They knew only a civilization like ours could figure this out at the exact moment in history that we need to.
Seeing stuff like that, to me, gives more proof that we had advanced civilizations in the past, and really just makes me angry because you know that we had books and scrolls that explained how to do all this stuff, places like the Library of Alexandria, and probably still have that information stored away by the Catholic Church. We'll just never get access to it unless someone decides to disband the Catholic Church and take back over everything that they've collected, but that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon, not in our lifetime.
Massive mysterious wounds are appearing all over the Arctic Circle, and here's why they have started to worry scientists. The first time one of these enormous craters was discovered was as recent as 2014 by a Russian pilot, and when he posted the video of what he saw, it made headlines around the world. Not only because it stumped some of the world's smartest scientists, but it was unlike any crater ever discovered. Now, since then, other mysterious holes have been popping up all over the Arctic, and now there are roughly 20 unexplained craters on record. Now, scientists know that they're not sinkholes because the rims are raised, meaning whatever it is not going into the ground. Rather, something is coming out of it. So when a high concentration of methane gas was detected at the bottom, a leading theory was put forth. The Earth was exploding. You see, this region has a huge amount of gas that has been trapped under the permanently frozen ground for millions of years. But recently, things in the Arctic Circle have been changing. It's believed that the melting of the ice underground has caused a buildup of gas, which eventually, under immense pressure, explodes. But why this is worrying scientists is that these craters aren't the only areas of the Arctic starting to leak methane due to these rising temperatures. And the reason that's a bloody problem is that studies show that methane over a 20-year period warms up the planet 80 times faster, thus driving even more melting and leaking methane. But hey, at least they say it's just a theory.
And now in 2024, we got to worry about the Earth farting and swallowing us up. Be careful where you build your house.
The portals that you use for your missions, what are they? Are they man-made or are they already part of the planet?
Well, they have built the one I was going through on top of one that's already there. So they're utilizing not only man-made energy, but they're also using the energy from the planet.
Does every portal go to a different place?
All the portals are going to different places, and there are some portals, of course, that the ETs have that they're utilizing that can go multiple places using that ley lines of the universe.
I've always wondered about this, if portals were a real thing. You know, you see the UFO videos of them flying their ships down into the water. Makes me wonder, is there something under there that they're going through that's transporting them somewhere else? So it's interesting to think about. If portals are real, someone needs to get one on video. That would be like one of the ultimate look what I got on tape type things, that you be famous overnight, you get a portal on video.
Into this craft, and what are you thinking when you're inside of it? Like, what are you seeing?
It's a very ominous feeling because first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere. It's as if somebody took, I've said this before, somebody took a model and fashioned it out of wax and then heated it just for a short time so everything melted. Everything looks like it's fused together. Everything has a radius of curvature where two items meet. It's a really weird looking thing, but there was almost nothing other than a small foldable hatchway that looked recognizable. Everything was really unworldly, to pick on it, a way to describe it.
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow. So these little 3-foot tallish creatures.
Yeah, and the seats were small too. I mean, obviously it was made for something small. But there is no, like, there's nothing else in there. There's just seats, the reactor, and some of the subcomponents. There's no control panels. There's no bathroom. There's no decorative components or artwork or anything that you would recognize or trim. I mean, it's just a very bare bones thing.
I think that one's cool because you've heard Bob Lazar talk about how they were backwards engineering these things, and then you find out they didn't even have controls. So it's not like they could get in there and be like, all right, let's just start pushing buttons and figure out how this thing works. They had to figure out how to control this thing with no controls. That's insane. So if those craft really exist and we have them and we backwards engineered them, we have figured out a way to move a craft that has no controls, no visible controls in it. That's fascinating.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use
their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Just threw that in there in case you forgot that you shouldn't trust the media, though I don't think that my audience has a problem with that.
Yo, yes I did. Caught on video the moment a road collapses following heavy rains and flash flooding in New Hampshire. Residents of Hillsborough watched today as the pavement cracked and buckled under the pressure of the rushing water. In the video, you can hear some people commenting that the road had just been fixed. Well, it is in need of fixing once again.
We haven't done a stat of that water in a while, so that's why I threw that one in.
Hey, I'm delivering here into these caves. Look what the sign says. 5 million square feet available. Is I'm dreaming? 5 million square feet under here? Hey, I'm in the cave, man. I'm actually delivering pizza crust. I'm actually delivering pizza crust. Well, it's only 15,000 pounds. Light as hell. I'm about 40 miles from the house.
15,000 pounds of pizza crust that he's delivering to an underground bunker right when the world's falling apart. I wonder what that's going under there for. Clearly the elite are setting up some sort of safe space for them to hide out and await the impending apocalypse. Unfortunately, unless you can afford to get some of that 5 million square foot of office space they have for lease under there, you're probably not going to be invited. Well guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed the clips that I threw together today. Really enjoyed the comments that I got on yesterday's video. Love talking to you guys in the comments. Keep talking to me down there. Let me know again if there's anything that y'all want to see me cover on here specifically. Let me know. I've gotten some great suggestions, some really good stuff coming down the pipeline. All that being said, we're going to wrap it up. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great safe day. I'll see you tomorrow.